What is up? Good morning. Happy Monday. We get another incredible week to continue building the lives and the careers that we want. Remember, every single day matters. Every week matters. Our days build our weeks, which build our months, which build our quarters, which build our years. So it's so easy to say, oh, it's just another day. But we got to remember every day and week matters. So in today's video, what we're going to talk about are 5 steps for if you're stuck or unhappy in your career. And there's a lot of people who feel stuck or feel unhappy for many different reasons. I talk to them every day. And so we're going to go through kind of the 3 major points today. So one is why you're stuck or unhappy. And there's several main reasons why people fall into this pit of, oh God, I don't want to be here anymore. Or, oh, I hate my job. Or the work-life balance, I don't have a life. You know, I never get to do what I want to do. I'm constantly answering calls at 11 p.m. or I'm answering emails or I'm always on call. So there's very specific reasons why you feel this way. And that's important. So then the second is resulting problems and consequences. So a lot of people are only thinking short term. And so because of that, they're only thinking, oh, I can bear through it. I can get through this. You know, it's just another day. But what they're forgetting is by staying stuck or staying in this negative sentiment of this negative mindset of being where they don't want to be, of being unhappy, there are major consequences long-term that most people don't think about. And so I want to talk about those. And then the third part is what are the 5 steps that you need to actually do or 5 steps you need to take to do about it. And so I'll break those down step by step by step by step. So I'm super excited. Let's dive in. All right, so let's talk about this first part, which is why you feel stuck or unhappy in the position that you're in. So I talk to and work with and take calls with a lot of people that are early career, mid-career. I've worked with senior executives with 20, 30, or 40 years of experience under their belt. And what's going to blow your mind is they have the same problems. Well, there's someone, 1 year out of college or 5 or 10 years out of college or 20 to 30 years out of college. They could be senior executives. I've worked with people leading global businesses. They have the same problems. So wherever you are in your career, know you are not alone in having this feeling of feeling stuck or unhappy. A lot of people, the only difference is how long people decide to stay in that problem. So there are 3 main reasons. And also, I want to show so Gallup Research, so they did research globally with I think it was 2,000 or 3,000 different companies with tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of people and respondents. And so they did a survey to figure out how many people are unhappy in their work. And these numbers are mind-boggling, mind-blowing. So 85% of the world, so this is the world, and I think for the research study, I think it was primarily for developed nations, so first world countries. But that's the primary trading block. So that's and then in terms of the U.S. So if you're watching this, most of the people I talk to are U.S. based. So in the U.S. it was 75%. So we're slightly better, but that's still crazy. 3 out of 4 people don't like what they do 5 out of 7 days of the week, sometimes 6 or 7 days out of the week. Man, that's pretty miserable. So 3 out of 4 people. And it's because of these 3 reasons. And when someone's really unhappy in what they're doing, it's because all 3 are happening at the same time. So let's start with the first one, growth. So if you feel like you're doing the exact same thing over and over and over and over and over again, then yes, you're going to feel like you're not growing. You're going to feel frustrated. You're going to feel like whatever you're doing is just completely worthless or it's not important because you're getting frustrated with your own work because it's repetitive. And so when it's repetitive, if we're not growing, we're dying. And so when we feel like we're not learning new skills or new knowledge or building new experiences, if we don't feel like we're improving, I mean, a super simple example and kind of a stupid example, but super relevant. Think of like a video game. Imagine if you were to play a video game and you could only play at one level forever. Would you keep playing that game? No, you'd probably blow the thing up outside. You'd probably get firecrackers and just explode it. And so we as human beings, we live on growth. We need growth. If we're going to be in a relationship, we want that relationship to get stronger, to get better, to get more juicy. And if we're in a career, we want to make more money. We want to develop our skills. We want to have more responsibility. We want to get promoted. And so it's the moment you find yourself in a situation where this is all of a sudden stuck or limited by the manager, or, hey, you're crushing performance. You're exceeding our expectations, but firm policy says you can only get promoted after 2 years or after 3 years. Well, shit, if this is the bell curve of the people in the company, and with certainty, with confidence, that you are in this percentile, if you're in this top, call it 20 to 10% here of the bell curve, well, that means that your career is still being dictated at the exact same pace and the same financial compensation as the people who are mid-bell curve here. That's not fair. And so what do? Well, you decide in your mind, well, why would I work any harder? Why would I take on more responsibility? Why would I keep doing more work if I'm going to make the same amount of money and get the exact same rewards and compensation and the exact same promotion schedule? If I'm automatically getting bucketed with people who are just average and just doing their jobs, why would I work any harder? And so that's where a lot of people get very frustrated in their work, is when they know they're type A, or they're Enneagrams 3, they're high achievers and they're crushing, but they're not actually getting rewarded for it. And so because of that, their growth is being limited. So I think that's probably one of the biggest problems that I see with people that I talk to who are in their 20s, 30s, 40s, and 50s, regardless of whatever age you are, where you are in career. If you're not growing, you will be frustrated. Now, and unhappy. Then the other part is contribution or caring. So this is different for every single person. So there's, and this is something that Tony Robbins talks about, but he talks about the science of achievement, which is how do we grow and succeed? Because growth, success in the business world, in the marketplace, that's a science. We can figure out the mechanics to make that happen, to be successful, to make more money. But in terms of fulfillment, Tony Robbins calls it the art of fulfillment. My values, what I want, my desires are probably very different from yours. Just like your values and your desires, what you want for your life, for your career, for your future family, or for your relationship, like your lifestyle, what you want could be very, very different from what other people want. And similarly, what I'm passionate about and interested in and gets me excited and going is probably very different from what you care about. And so if you are doing work that you don't care about, that is a major problem, because it's going to shut down your creativity. It's going to stop you from developing yourself. And so all of these negative consequences, and I'm getting ahead of myself, we'll talk about that in the next section, but there are so many things, bad things that happen the moment we stop caring. And this usually also leads to this. Because if we just don't care, if we're not emotionally invested, if we're not super interested in just personally invested in the work that we're doing, if we're walking into work saying, oh, just another day, just got to get it done, can't wait for Friday, woo, then if that's how we're living, we know that this is going to suffer too, because we're just trying to get through it. We're working for a paycheck at that point. There's no emotional involvement. It's just flatlining. You get sucked into that trap of making maybe an additional 3 to 5% a year, barely beating inflation, and at that point you're really only net increasing your compensation 1 to 2% a year. And then people talk about, well, I'm not getting any richer. Well, it's because, one, you're not developing yourself, you're not investing in yourself, you're not growing, but then two is you really don't care about what you're doing professionally. And there's the quote by Steve Jobs, you must love your work. If you want to do great work, you must absolutely love and care about the work that you're doing, that you're contributing to the world. So I would challenge you to ask, do I care about what I'm doing? Am I growing? Am I getting better? Am I building my skills, knowledge, and experience? And then the third part is alignment, personal alignment. So the other part here is I work with a lot of high achievers. I work with a lot of consultants, a lot of bankers. I work with executives. I work with people who are type A and they're achievers. They get things done. They want to be successful. Well, they also still have lives. And a lot of these people, even though they're not probably not 9 to 5, maybe they're still working until 7 or 8 p.m., but a lot of these people, all of a sudden their relationship starts suffering or their health starts suffering. And there's a lot of other consequences where their work-life balance is not aligning, or their career path is not aligning with what they actually want for their life. And so you can think of it this way. In your mind right now, you have a blueprint for what you want your life to look like, what you want your career to look like, but also what you want your life to look like. And if right now your current situation is not aligning with what you have in your head about what you want for your career, or what you want for your work-life balance, or what you want for your relationships, your health, and the moment other things start getting sacrificed in a way that does not align with how you see things in your head, there's going to be unhappiness, and you're going to feel stuck, frustrated, and all of a sudden resentment is going to build. So I hope all three of these make perfect sense to you, and you can begin to think about, if I am unhappy or I feel stuck in where I am in my career, ask yourself, is it because I'm not growing? Is it because I don't really care about what it is that I'm doing, like personally? And you could be doing very important work, but there's a difference between important work and important work that you care about. There's a lot of important things that have to be done in the world. But if you don't personally feel interested or excited or wanting to do the work, it could be the most important work in the world, but you're still going to be average at it. You're just going to be mediocre at it because you don't actually care a lot more than other people. So I just want to make that distinction, that there could be very important work, but it doesn't mean that you personally feel deeply interested in investing in it. And then the third part is alignment. Is your current life or your current career aligning with the blueprint that you have for what you want in your life? Because if it's not, these three are going to cause a lot of unhappiness and you're going to feel stuck. All right, so now we can talk about the consequences or the problems of not growing, not feeling personally invested in what you're doing, or the third part is just a misalignment, which is causing frustration and unhappiness. So the first major problem is, again, limited to no growth. So if you feel stuck or unhappy, you're not going to have the willingness or the mindset of, I'm going to continue reading, investing in courses, investing in coaching, investing in a training seminar, investing in a conference, picking people's brains, reaching out and networking with industry, people who've been very successful and learning from them. It's all of those things get shut down when you're in that attitude and that mindset of, I just don't care, or I'm just going to do my work and get home. I've got dinner plans at 5:30. And I'm not saying that that's a bad thing, but it is a bad thing if it's like that all the time. Now, if you don't feel motivated to get better at what you're doing, you're declining. You're not staying stagnant. You are declining because the rest of the world is moving forward. So the moment that we stand still and don't grow and everything else is continuing to move forward, we're actually declining. So that is a major problem over the long term. And that's also why most people get so frustrated in terms of not being able to get a promotion, or they're not getting a raise, or someone else gets it instead of them. It's, well, I'm willing to bet that other person probably didn't stop growing. So then the next step, so negative emotions. Now, I'm sure a lot of people are like, I'm not emotional. Every human being is emotional. Or some people say, oh, he or she is way too emotional. It's the people who are not emotional, they've chosen to express them very differently. Every human being is emotional. Some are expressive, other people bottle it up, and it builds and builds and builds like a pressure chamber until that thing explodes, and then someone makes a very rash, irrational decision. So when we have negative emotions in our life, it's you can't just walk out the door and forget everything. I know that everybody says, leave work at work, when you're at work, when you're at play, and don't mix the two. That was a quote by Jim Rohn. Easier said than done. If you're unhappy in the workplace, it is so difficult to be able to not take that home because it's still in there. And your mind, as much as we try to shut down our mind from thinking about something, it's like, have you ever, personal example that almost everybody can relate to. Everybody can relate to this in some way or shape or form. A relationship. So think of a person, whether it was an intimate relationship, a love-based relationship, or I guess intimate love, or even a love relationship. So a family member or someone that you deeply care about. Has there been a moment in your life where something happened that was either very painful or hurtful? And think about how hard was it to stop thinking about it? Did it affect your motivation to work out in the morning or to work out at night? Did it affect your eating habits? Did it affect how you were present with your friends? Did it impact your social relationships? Did it impact your ability to even think and operate at work? Because you couldn't even think because emotionally you were just bundled up in emotions. So when we don't like what we do, now obviously that's a very intense example, but when we're unhappy at work, that effect it permeates throughout our entire life. It doesn't just get bottled up at work and then just boom, just punt it out and then it just stays at work. No. That affects all of our relationships, personal and professional. It also affects our attitude towards life. If we have a negative attitude at work, we have a negative attitude toward life. This is as good as it's going to get. Well, what a horrible mindset. That sucks. That's as good as your life is going to get. That's as good as your career is going to get. You're stuck forever. That blows. So instead, we need a positive. We have to have a positive outlook on life. Because if we don't, everything else gets tainted as well. And then quality of life. So there's a quote, and I believe this is also a Tony Robbins quote, but the quality of our lives is based on the quality of our the quality of our emotions. And the reason he said that is because, and I'm pretty sure his exact quote is, if you're pissed off and frustrated, the quality of your life is pissed off and frustrated. If you're happy and grateful, the overall quality of your life is happy and grateful. And so a lot of people don't even realize that they're having relationship troubles or they're having financial frustrations or like any of the, they fail to realize that most of that negative attitude is coming from the workplace because they're unhappy at work and they're there 5 to 6 days a week. So this is a big one that a lot of people miss. So then the third part, it destroys creativity. When you have a negative mindset, your brain shuts down. If you don't believe something is possible, your brain stops thinking. It just stops working. But the moment someone asks the question, how can we, all of a sudden your mind turns back on. Well, the people asking the how questions, how can we improve this? How can we make this change? How can I make more money? How can I live a better life? How can I get that dream that I want for myself 10, 20, 30 years from now? The people that are asking how, they're the ones with the positive mindset saying, hey, it's possible, I just don't know how to do it. How can I do it? Their brain turns on and they start creatively thinking about solutions. But if someone has a negative mindset, it destroys creativity because they stop caring. And when you stop caring, you stop trying. When you stop trying, you stop thinking. When you stop thinking, you're just going to execute like a zombie. In, out, done. And then people start saying, I feel like a cog in a machine. Well, that's because you don't care, you're not growing, and there's no creativity or no autonomy, no ownership over the work. And that's also a separate issue, is some people are micromanaged to the point where they feel like they have no creative power. And so because of that, it leads to even more frustration, again, negative emotions. Okay, so when we have a negative mindset, we're not growing, or we don't care about what we're doing, or it doesn't align with us, again, the three main problems, that leads to, it destroys our motivation, our work ethic, and our personal investment in the work itself. We just don't feel like doing anything. We just do whatever is required, but we're not going to do any more than that because we don't want to. We don't feel like it. Why would we if we don't feel like it, So then the next problem is it builds resentment and causes conflict. So all of a sudden, a simple ask is just one more thing on the fire. It just builds it up even more. And so as I talked about earlier, it starts to build this pressure chamber where it's like, oh, they asked me to do this. Oh, I have to do this now too. Oh, I have to do this? it just builds and builds and builds and builds and builds until eventually it's like all of a sudden now you hate people at work. You hate the manager, you hate the boss, you hate that other team, you hate the suppliers, the vendors, and you just your relationships with these people and it's not even because of them. They're just trying to do their job. Now maybe they're a little not the most pleasant about it. Maybe how they made the ask is rather impolite, to put it frankly. But either way, it's like it's the workplace, it's the marketplace, it's business, it's serious stuff. It's not everybody's a go-lucky friend. It's every now and then you got to have to be very direct with somebody. So maybe the manager who's very direct with you and gives you critical feedback, well, maybe you take it as, I knew it, I don't like them, they don't like me, I hate my job, I'm blah, blah, blah. And then just build and build and builds. Well, this is just everything is because of the negative emotions and it builds resentment over the long term. And then eventually it causes conflict between people in the workplace, you, your boss, or you and other colleagues, or you and some other team cross-functionally. And it affects your opportunities. Because when you have conflict with other people, conflict does not make friends. And so if those people don't like you, if they don't trust you, and if they don't want to do business with you or work with you, that massively starts limiting your career opportunities. All of a sudden, you don't have the senior people providing visibility options for you. Or all of a sudden, you don't have the senior people that are vouching for you at the table when it comes time for bonuses. Or maybe you don't have people, slipping new opportunities for you so you can prove yourself so that you can show other people, hey, I'm capable of doing this. Look at what I've done before. And now you're able to negotiate for a promotion or for additional compensation. And so the moment that we have massive conflict with people that we need in our career, we start shooting ourselves in the foot. And so then the final part is significantly less money. All of this stuff means that you are losing hundreds of thousands of dollars in your career over the long term, because if you're not growing, if you're not creative, if you're not adding more value to the workplace because you just don't feel like it and you don't like the people you work with and you don't really care about what you're doing in the first place, then if you're not adding that value, you're not building your career. And if you're not building your career, then you're not able to negotiate for more responsibility, for more opportunity, for more money, for a title change or a promotion, or to be able to jump to that team that you really want to. So all of these things start stacking, and it's not about just the 1 year that you're in right now. It's about the next 2 years or 5 years or 10 years or 20 years. And that compounds over time until the point where you've lost hundreds of thousands, maybe even millions of dollars, depending on what you do professionally and how big you want to build your career. It might be costing you millions of dollars because of the negative emotions, limited growth, and you just don't care. All right, so now let's talk about what to actually do about it. So we talked about the problems, we talked about the long-term consequences of those problems, and now let's talk about the 5 steps of what I'd recommend that you begin thinking about doing if you do feel unhappy or stuck in your career situation right now. So the first part is you have to know what you want. Now, think back to, if I were to ask you this question, how did you get into the situation that you're in right now? Why did you take that job? Why did you decide to work at that company? What were the factors or the decisions that led you to make the decision to be where you are right now? Did you pursue this opportunity with an intense focus that this is exactly what I want and I'm going to make that happen? Or was it available? Did a recruiter happen to come across your world and say, hey, I have this opportunity, and you said, oh, that's more money than I'm making right now, so I'm going to take that? Or did you need a job and so you just kind of posted it out and there were 15 open applications, you applied to 15 of them, only 3 got back to you and you're like, all right, I'm going to work at one of these 3, and then you went through several of the interview processes and ended up choosing one of them? Or maybe you just knew that something is prestigious and it would look good and it would most likely be good for your career, and so you decide to do that. If any of those are how you made your decision, that is what got you to where you are today. It's because you did not actively choose exactly what you wanted and go get it. Most people are reactive. They're responsive to the world. And because of that, they end up in these situations. It's exciting for the first 6 months. It's new. It's different. But then after the first 6 months, it falls into, I'm doing the same thing again. Do I really like this? Do I not like this? How long do I want to be doing this for? Do I want to do this for 2 years, maybe a year and a half, maybe 3 years? Like all of this, it's the same pattern over and over and over again. And I've worked with people who are senior leaders in their 40s and 50s who have been running this pattern of not getting exactly what they wanted. And they just kind of responded, oh, you'll pay me an extra 20 grand? Done. Here I am. And so it's people start making these decisions based on one, either money, or two, it's just reactive responses to whatever's available, but it wasn't strategic and it wasn't planned. It wasn't exactly what they wanted. So everyone else, most people are going to tell you, do what's safe, what's secure, what's certain, and never ever take a risk if you're not absolutely certain. Well, if you live your whole life that way, you'll never really have what you want, which means that you'll always feel stuck or unhappy because you know what that blueprint is in your mind and you don't have it. So that's going to cause pain. And so you got to know exactly what you want and not settle for anything else. You got to get this. So then the second part is develop your strategy for that change. So thinking through, okay, what are all of the steps, step by step by step by step by step, that I'm going to follow to make sure that I get what I want? And you need to have that strategy. And that's going to take time to think through if you're doing it by yourself. And that's why I have a business, is I help people do this, because I do it every single day, 365 days a year, and I've now helped over 100 people do it. But the most important thing is you have to have that strategy. Otherwise, it's going to be following the exact same pattern as before of whatever's available, anything is better than this, I'm going to go here now. That looks exciting, but I don't know. We'll see. And then they end up in the exact same problem 2 to 3 years later, and they keep repeating the pattern. So then the third part is, once you know your strategy, you have to execute every single day. Every day matters. It can't just be a one day a week thing. In order to get what you really want, you need to be doing what other people are not willing to do. Most people don't have what they want because they're not willing to do what it takes. And so for you to get what you want, to get this thing, it has to be every day. The moment you forget about it, the moment you forget how important it is, you're not going to take that action. Well, if you're not taking that action, someone else is. And someone else is going to get what you want. And the other important thing here is I always remind people, build your bridge before crossing it. Now, what do I mean by that? I mean, a lot of people believe it's black or white. I'm either in this job or in the next job. And there's no strategy in between. There's no really, I wouldn't even say long-term, but short-term strategy to make that transition. Just because you've committed to transitioning or making that change in your life or in your career, and in this example, your career, just because you've committed to making that change doesn't mean you're quitting today and then full-blown going after. You want to be able to execute every single day and build this bridge until step 4, you secure your opportunity in writing. I never recommend giving notice to your current employer or mentioning anything at your current workplace just because you're in the interview process or the final rounds of a negotiation for a potential new opportunity. You do not want to do that, because what if something, God forbid, but some unexpected crazy thing happens, COVID, where a lot of people had already quit and were finishing up their interview processes, and all of a sudden something happens and poof, that opportunity is now gone. And now they're stuck mid-bridge, bridge collapses, now they're in the water. And so we don't want that to happen. So you want to make sure that it's in writing and it's signed, sealed, delivered, it's done. Then only at that point do you want to go to your current employer and say, hey, everybody, deuces, I'm out. See ya, I'm over here. And then the fifth part, accelerate growth, track and manage your own performance, and negotiate. Negotiate. If you don't know how to negotiate, that is one of the most expensive, costly, underdeveloped skills that you have. Because negotiation is everything. Price is a myth. And that's something that I've learned from the people that I study and I look up to. But if you were to walk into the store everything in that store has a price. Well, in a developed nation like the United States, we have a culture where if there's a price, that's what you pay for it. You go to the front, you pay for it. Well, what is a discount? Why all of a sudden on one day out of the year, there's a 40% discount, all the prices are just tanked? Well, how does that happen? So if you really wanted to, you could take an item in the store and go up to the manager of the store and say, I don't believe I should pay this price. I will only pay 10% less. Well, that manager might look at you like you're crazy, because who does that? But if that manager truly did believe you, if you really did negotiate with that manager in the store that, hey, the store down the street, I love you guys, but if I can't get this for 10% off, and maybe it's a big ticket item, maybe you're buying the kids a trampoline or something, well, that's a couple $100 investment. Well, maybe the manager, if the manager knows that you are serious about going down the street and buying that trampoline from someone else because it's 10% less, that manager might just say, hey, you know what? I'll work with you. And then they go and pop in some buttons and put in that discount. Price is a myth. Just like your compensation, what you are paid is completely subjective. It is always negotiable. When someone says we don't have money in the budget, BS. If you are more valuable than your compensation, that company knows that they cannot lose you, they will pay for you. They will pay you more money. They are willing to give you a moving bonus, or there's some other form of compensation. If the value is there, they will pay for it. If they know your value, they will pay for it. And so in terms of accelerate, let's just say you make the transition, you built your bridge, you got it in writing, you're now in that next position. You want to accelerate your growth. You need to invest in yourself. If you are not investing in yourself, if you are not getting smarter, better, more valuable, more creative, able to add more value to the company, to the workplace, to your team, you're never going to make more money. If someone is cutting your lawn today and you pay them $20, and then next year they come back, they're still cutting your lawn, but all of a sudden now that person comes up to you and says, hey, I want you to pay me $30 now. Well, in your mind, you're going to say, why? You're still cutting my lawn. Nothing's changed. You're still cutting the same lawn with the same lawnmower with the same gasoline, and why would I pay you more to cut my lawn? It's the same lawn. Well, I really cut that lawn well over the last year. I did a really good job. So I think you should pay me more because I cut that lawn really, really well. That's what people do in their careers, is they expect the company or the manager to pay them more money when they're doing the exact same thing. Now, I always encourage, again, all the labor discussions about minimum wage and all that, as prices increase, yes, minimum wage has to go up. As prices and things inflate, yes, the minimum wage also needs to be inflating. But in terms of if you're making $100,000 and all of a sudden you expect to be paid $120,000, but you haven't added more value, that manager, that's not going to go well. It's going to be very uncomfortable. And if anything, it's going to cause more conflict because now you're going to feel resentful against the manager or the company, and then you're probably going to leave, go somewhere else, maybe for 5, 10, 15, 20 grand more, but now maybe you hate that culture, or maybe it leads to a mess. So the ability to negotiate and know what you're worth is super, super, super important. And now the other part, so track and manage your performance. I want to quickly touch on this too, because most people rely on their manager or their teammates or someone else to determine their performance. Now, think about how crazy that is. Just take a second. Who knows better than you what you did? What did you actually do every single day, every single week for the entire year? You. You know what you got done. You know what your expectations were. You know what your responsibilities were. You knew what the job description said, that you're signing up, that I will do this for the company. You know what's expected of you. And you know how you match up with that. We don't need someone else to say, hey, you did really well, or hey, you didn't do that well. Of course we want a third-party opinion, but at the end of the day, if we're showing up completely empty-handed, having absolutely no idea how we did for the year, well, that means that we don't know how much value we contributed over and above what we were supposed to do. And so how can you possibly negotiate if you don't know how well you did relative to what was expected of you. So I hope you're starting to see how this comes together. We need to develop ourselves. We have to invest in ourselves to become more valuable. And then once we become more valuable and start adding more value to the team, the company, the position, whatever, and we're tracking and managing our own performance and our own value contribution, well, all of a sudden, at the end of the year, this is a very different conversation. So I hope all of this was insightful for you in terms of thinking about if I am stuck, if I am unhappy in where I am in my career, and I no longer want this to happen. These 5 steps need to happen in order, because this 5th step, that's what's going to get you to the blueprint that you have in your mind of what do I really want. So again, know what you want, develop your strategy, build that bridge daily until it's finished. Then don't cross it until you have that next thing in writing and is certain. And then once you're in that next position, conquer. Invest in yourself, become more valuable, track and manage your own performance and value, and then be willing to negotiate for what you know you're worth. All right, now the last thing I want to share with you is how I can help you if you're currently in this situation. I talk to people every day who are high achievers, high performers. They have big ambitions for their life, for their career, what they want to achieve, and they feel unhappy or stuck in where they are. And they're not certain what they want to do. They don't know what they want or how they're planning to get there or how to maximize their value and get what they're actually worth. A lot of people believe that if they were to make a change, they're not going to make as much money as they are right now. That could not be further from the truth. And if anything, I'm willing to bet you're probably underpaid right now in some way, shape, or form if you've been with your company for longer than 2, 3, 4 years. So in terms of how I work with people is I help people make career changes now. And so there's 6 important parts in order to make that happen quickly and successfully and to get what you want while at the same time making great money. So the very first thing is you need to know exactly what you want. And that's kind of what we talked about before, is know exactly what you want. So I help people figure out career clarity and targeting in terms of getting that position of the companies that they want that align with what they truly want, that blueprint. So then the second part is strategic positioning. If you don't know how to sell yourself, and I'll give an example. So imagine 10 incredible, let's just say financial analysts. Let's say you have 10 financial analysts in a room, and they're all very smart. They're all very educated. They're all great. One of them knows how to step forward and pitch their value to the company or to the interviewer or to the company management or whoever it is that they're talking to. If one person out of 10 knows how to position themselves and how they can add massive value, and that's where most people bomb. Interviews, negotiations, like in terms of getting their, most people walk into a negotiation really don't know what to say. They just say in some way, shape, or form, what really comes across is I deserve more money. That will never fly. And so most people don't know how to position themselves in order to, 1, get what they want, but then 2, maximize their value. This is crucial, this strategy, because how you position yourself to the marketplace is going to affect all of your personal branding. It's going to affect all of your networking and how you present yourself and build relationships, strategic relationships in the marketplace. But it's also going to affect how you interview, the responses that you give, how you pitch your value, and even more importantly, is it's going to affect how you negotiate your offer, how much money that company believes that you're worth. So I'm getting ahead of myself, but strategic positioning, personal branding is your resume, your LinkedIn, your cover letter, everything that you need in order to be able to position and communicate your value to the marketplace, to recruiters, to companies, and to the managers that are actually running for their own team that interview process. But then a strategic networking and transitioning, which is, a lot of people don't know this, but 80% of jobs are filled through referrals, through people, not through online portals like Indeed or ZipRecruiter or LinkedIn or any of those. 80% is through referrals, and that's because it's cheaper and faster and a better culture fit for the companies. So you have to be networking. If you're not networking, you will not get what you want, or at least it's very, very, very slim odds. So, and then the 5th part is interview mastery. And obviously the interview is to get the offer, but even more importantly is you need to dominate the interviews, because if you dominate the interviews, your perceived value, how badly the company wants you, goes up. Well, when they really, really want you, what does that do? That gives you leverage for the offer negotiation. All of a sudden, you have flexibility on how you're going to get what you want. So, hope all 6 of these make sense. I've helped over 100 people now do this. And so these people that I've helped, they've been early career, they've been mid-career. I've worked with senior executives that are managing multi-billion-dollar companies. So in terms of who I work with, wherever you are in your career, I'm certain I can help. Now, the other thing that a lot of people don't know is I've worked with people who've walked away with between $5,000 to $65,000 in negotiated compensation. That is potentially the money that you're leaving on the table by not making this transition into, one, something you actually want and would enjoy, but 2 is the financial upside that you might have for your career could be enormous. So if you're interested, all I encourage you to do is go to redstonecoaching.com, which is my website, and you can book a time to call and apply online. And then that way we can have a conversation. I can learn more about what it is that you do, why you're unsatisfied, ideas or thoughts you've had about what you might want, and then I can go more in depth on exactly how it can help you get what you want quickly, successfully, and strategically. So again, hope you have an outstanding week. I hope this video was valuable to you. I can't stress enough how often I see this. Those 3, the problems, the consequences, and then people wanting to make transitions but holding back. They're afraid to make the transition because they either don't know what they want or they don't know how to get it, or they're afraid that they're not going to make the money. And I hope I clearly showed that is not the truth. It is not the truth. So have an outstanding week. I come out with these videos every Monday morning. You're awesome. Never forget that. Regardless of what other people believe, you need to believe it. And I'll see you next Monday.